All right, everybody, we're live. Good Dads, episode number 2. Let's get this party started. Isaac, what's our topic of conversation today, man?
We're going to run through some backgrounds, just kind of a update on the podcast guys, the dads of the pod.
Yo, baby.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pull up some questions. I was watching. What was I watching? Pacific Rim. You seen that show? Pacific Rim. And while I was watching Pacific Rim, I was thinking, what questions am I going to ask Isaac tomorrow on the podcast? So, got a bunch of questions. So the goal here, I think, is I just want to, obviously get to know more about you, let everybody know more about you, and I think the same thing. I'll answer some of the similar questions. We never decided on if we should alternate back and forth or
alternate back and forth or just run through it. I think it'll build off of it, but probably bounce back and forth.
Okay. So we got, 30 to 40 minutes. Whole goal is just to kind of share with the people some questions. So I'm just going to start from the top. I'm curious. I don't think we've ever talked about this, but where were you born and where were your parents at in life when they had you?
Nice. That's a good one. Born in Helena, Montana. And I was born in the hospital, which is nice. There's 11 of us kids, so it's a squad. I was actually in a movie or a commercial for the hospital for being the newest baby.
No way.
At least I was told that
Nice.
when I was a kid.
It was famous.
Yeah, already famous right off the bat. And then running through kind of my parents. So my dad is a chiropractor, and he had a practice out of our house that we lived, and it was right next to. I lived there till I was like 6.5, but it was right next to like KFC and like a donut shop or something. But that's kind of all I remember. And at that time, he was slowly getting into a multi-level marketing company that then later ended up flourishing very good for our family at the time. So it was cool to see he ended up selling his practice, but in the time of us being in that moment early on, I think it was just constant, adjusting people and things like that. And then, and I believe that we were doing decent. When I was 6, I think there was 9 kids already or 8 kids. So you're doing as best as you can to stay afloat at that time for the family.
That is a squad.
Yeah.
I thought you were from St. George. Why did I think that?
So St. George, I tell a lot of people. So because I just got to connect with people, right? And so I tell people. So it was Helena until I was 6, and then we moved to Craig, which was in between till I was right before I turned 8, and then I moved to St. George, Utah, right before I turned 8, and then I was baptized actually in there. So
that makes sense. Okay, solid. So for me, on that question, I was actually born. I was born in Laramie, Wyoming.
Laramie,
a Wyoming baby. My parents moved up there. They were super poor after college, and I think that was my dad's first job at the University of Wyoming, and so they moved up there, and then I was born there, and then shortly, after that, we moved back to Arizona. But born in Wyoming, we grew up just pretty much all throughout Mesa. Moved around in Mesa a bunch of times. I'm the oldest of 3 boys, so just 3 of us. That's it. Yeah. And I think the craziest thing was probably when I was born, I had pretty intense surgeries. Most of my I can't even imagine 11 kids because the 3 kids that my parents did have, we had surgeries galore, and we had to go to the doctor all the time. So I think they were just done after 3.
Yeah.
But for me, I had open heart surgery pretty much right after I was born, and so that's one thing my parents talk about fairly often, and it's been a very different perspective from me as a dad to like what my parents experienced, because my wife and I, like, we haven't really had health insurance forever. We've done like Christian healthcare ministry, whatever, health share plans, because we're entrepreneurs and we go sell and make money or whatever that way. And where that perspective is different than what my parents went through, because when I was born, I had that surgery, and I think my parents had like a $600,000 medical bill, like,
wow,
right off the bat.
Right, just
so,
to
just like starting off your marriage and your life with that. So that's why they're always like, get health insurance, because of that experience and things. So yeah, I mean, oldest of 3 boys. I've got a younger brother who's like 27 right now, and then my youngest brother is like 22, just got back from a mission.
Oh, nice.
They're not married, but
were you all born in Wyoming?
No, they were both born here. Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
Dang. Yeah.
And what? So open heart surgery. What other surgery did you? Because you said you had quite a few that were.
Yeah. So that was like when I was born, and then later on, you know how they do that thing in PE where I don't know if you had this, but they like do scoliosis check. Hey, you were homeschooled.
Yeah, homeschooled. Yeah.
So they do like a scoliosis check thing where they'll like come to your class and tell everybody to bend over, and they're like, check your spine, basically. Okay. And they see if your spine is straight or not. And mine was like, obviously very much not. Yeah. And so it was like third, fourth grade, whatever. They're like, hey man, if you didn't know, you have scoliosis. I'm like, well, thanks for the heads up. Like, yeah, duh. Like, yeah. A huge bump on my back, So that was the other major surgery. Was I had spinal fusion surgery. Oh, okay. I was 8 or 9, like ballpark. Okay. And so it was a little later on.
Later on, yeah.
Still as a kid.
Nice, yeah, still as a kid. Yep. For sure. Man, well, let me see here. What was another
one? Question? Tell us about your siblings. I mean,
siblings
that you're close to.
Yeah, sweet. So, let's see here. So siblings that I'm close to. I try and stay as close as I can with all of them. There's 11, so I have 7 sisters and 3 brothers, and we're about 2 years ish apart, a little more, a little less. Actually, like 2 months ago, I started doing a Sunday video call just to try and bring everyone together and try and stay, because that size of the family, it's really hard, and we're all kind of spread out. So oldest sister's Julia, she's married with 5 kids. And then next sister is Angela. She is actually she is on the streets in California somewhere. Wow. So she kind of every once in a while will check in, and it's not really a check-in. It's more of like, I need help or something. And, and I imagine that on my parents. I'm like, I couldn't even imagine, and then next sister is Maria. She has 5 kids. She lives in Utah. Mm-hmm. And then Sarah, she lives here. She's got 5 kids as well. And then Lana. And she's in St. George, not married in there. And then Diana, she has 3 kids, and they ended up splitting. And then we have myself. I was the first boy born, so nice. Got to rep that, And then Sam, he's out. He was in the military, hard-driven guy, and he does just books, and he does college more than he's more of a book guy than I'm like the streets guy, I would say.
Guy, smart guy.
Yeah, and then Dan, he's married in Utah, and then John, he's a pilot, and he's up in Utah as well. And then Emma is my youngest sister, so the final one, and she's up in Utah as well. So most of my family's up in Utah. But yeah, that's
your parents.
That's the run through of my
quite
squad.
The lineage.
Yeah.
Lots of children
Lots.
as well among those families.
Yeah. No TVs in the house, you
Yeah.
know. It was boredom
Yeah,
activities.
let's
No,
do
I'm just kidding.
That's all right. Okay, well,
What
mine's
about
fast.
you? Yeah.
Mine's fast. I've got 2 younger brothers.
Yeah.
And neither of them are married. They're both, in school, and yeah, they're just good uncles. So I've got 2 daughters and a son, and they just can be uncles right now, and I'll go to the next stage soon.
Heck yeah. Yeah, I actually skipped over myself. I just said myself. Yeah. So I got 4 kids and married here. And yeah, I got two girls, 2 boys, and they're 10, 8, 6, and 4. So every 2 years, 2 girls are first and
Awkward.
and 2 boys. Yeah. Yeah, we planned it out, you know. I'm just kidding.
Where'd you meet your wife?
We met at a church activity. So I saw her. Yeah, for sure. And I saw her across. There was a group of girls, and I was like, "Oh, she's cute. Like, what are you guys doing tonight?" And ended up going over, seeing them, and then the next night we built gingerbread houses. And then we kind of text for like a month, and I was like, it's not going anywhere. And then she sent me a picture of her quail hunting or pheasant hunting, and I was like, oh, well, this might be a real thing. You got me. So we dated for a year, and then that was it. So heck yeah. What about you? Where'd you marry, or where'd you meet your wife?
Same thing, college. Yeah, in class, institute class. And just happened to meet, and well, actually, no, my dad will probably take credit. My dad was an instructor at the college, and he was like, "Hey, you should meet this girl," and she had a boyfriend, and just stayed in touch, and right after the mission.
Right after
Mesa Community College.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So we have a ton of questions. This is insane how much time goes by.
Yeah.
But I'm curious. It's been said, here's like I wrote it out because I was really, trying to be deliberate, right? It's been said that we shape our mindset and personality so much before the age of 12. Any experiences that you remember that were particularly impactful as a child to shaping who you are now? Anything that comes to mind?
Ooh, that is that's a super good question. Yeah. I don't know. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, okay, so I homeschooled my whole life, and so one thing that I always wanted were I wanted friends.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was like my craving, because I had like all my siblings, and I kind of we craved it, just attention. And well, that was personally to me. Yeah. And so having that, I had like a couple friends. I think church was a big factor because I wanted to like meet people. And I feel like that's kind of shaped me into being a lot of just, I want to get out there. I want to meet as many people as I can. My dad raised us as like in the mornings we would play basketball a ton. And it was like he would drill us for like 2 hours, because it was like, that was what we did. We woke up in the morning. It was like, hey, you drill for 2 hours, and then we read scriptures, and then it was, school. So nice. I think those little things of my dad, really kind of honing me in and like drilling, making me go through drills and making me go through hard things, got me to where today it's like, it's just a giant game to me, and it's fun. So that's a really hard question to answer right off the bat, but I loved every second of that. That was running through the amount of, I think the crazy thing is all the memories are flashing through, and I'm like, what has shaped me? And I'm like, there's so many things,
I sent you these questions last night.
I know. I'm like, I should have done it, but it's like domino effects, one thing impacts the other, and then it impacts deeper, and man, but no, that I'm trying to think. Yeah, just the crave of that, and I think too, later in life, when I was like before 12, but then later in life, I wasn't a confident reader till I was like 14. And so, and buying that, I would memorize books. Just, my mom would read them to me, and then I would memorize them and be like, yeah, I got it. Check it off. Right. Yeah. But I wanted to be outside. And one day I was always that kid that was super shy, and in church, if I got asked to pray, they would be like, I would cry and get up and leave the room. And so I was just really this awkward, shy kid.
That is
and
surprising.
yeah, right. And when I turned like 15, 16, I swore to myself that I would always, if I ever saw a kid in that situation, I would always pull it off of them and pull that, because I was in like, I just wanted help in that moment of like, don't ask me, like, or help me, or, but I needed to go through the hard times. So anyways, I could go on for hours, I guess, with just that question. But
I see that. I think that's I've been with you in public places, and you definitely know how to pull attention. You need to pull attention in the moment. So that makes a lot of sense.
I need the truth. Oh, that's good. Well, what about you, dude? Let me read that back to you.
Oh, dude.
Or you got it.
Yeah, I got it. Childhood shaping experiences.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. There's a ton. Like, I would say I very much, and that, like, I can see this in my daughter, which is so crazy. When you have like traits that you pick up as as a kid, and then they carry over to like as an adult, and then you start seeing in your kids, and you're like, okay, how am I passing these traits down, deliberately or not deliberately? Which is why I think thinking about this is so cool, because so much of this it just like kind of happened as a kid. It's not like it was meant to be necessarily. But I was very, very, very self-conscious of like making mistakes as a kid. Like there were a couple times when I would mispronounce a word in like public, or like I would read or something would happen. Like I vividly remember like I was reading a book as I don't even know what grade. It was very, very young, but I had I had a booger in my nose reading this book, and like my whole class like laughed at me, and they made fun of me for it. And like that little experiences like that, where you're in public and you mess up, and then I would, I performed, and I was in choirs and other things. But I vividly remember that, where having that many eyes and being made fun of, and like those feelings.
Totally.
And I see that in my daughter a ton. And it like, you step back and I'm like, okay, well, did I pass this on?
Like, yeah.
Was this an intentional thing? Was it not? Where she's self-conscious in front of larger groups, and she performs a ton, and she'll go do it still.
Yeah.
But it's that fear of messing up and being scared to try as hard as you could.
Yeah.
Because you're so scared to mess up.
Yeah.
And I know that's something for me that, like, especially with the line of work and entrepreneurship and other things, like you just have to go for it.
Yeah.
And you want to teach your kids to not feel that same way of, don't be scared to try. That's okay. You're probably going to fail. People might laugh. That's all good. But just do it anyways. Please do it anyways.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Totally.
Don't let that stop you.
Yeah.
So that's something that I guess comes to mind in our topic.
Yeah, I love that.
It's real.
Yeah, it's so real.
So, okay, this is the go-to. What do you want to be when you grow up? What was your answer as a kid?
Oh man. Yeah, it's crazy how just each year it changes. For at least it did for me. But when I was like, because when I turned 8, that's when we started kind of training to be like basketball, and we started like entering into like leagues, or there was BYU basketball camp, and me and my brother we'd go BYU basketball camp, and then we would end up being on like the all-star team, and then top scorer, top assists. And it was crazy to look back at like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 in those ages. And we were always top performers in that arena. So basketball was like my dream at that time. And I loved animals. I wanted to be a veterinarian. And then when I was 13, it switched to tennis. A neighbor came over and was like, hey, do you want to come play tennis? I went and played tennis. We watched a clinic, and there were some kids next to me, same age, maybe a year older than me. And they were just had been playing for 8 years. And I was like, man, I want to be that good. And so it switched at 13. But to be, I wanted to be a tennis pro. But I think a veterinarian was like, I just loved animals, and I always wanted to be a veterinarian. That was always in the back of my head.
Yeah.
But at no
Dude,
point
I
was
totally
it ever
wanted to be a
sales.
basketball player. I was like, I had no clue that was
Yeah.
your childhood as well. I had like all the high school basketball camps. I was obsessed with basketball. First word, did all the camps, all the schools, all the stuff. And then I had spinal fusion surgery. And that kind of like went down the toilet a little bit. But after surgery, I was obsessed with, I want to be a doctor. After that kind of situation, it was like, okay, like that is the new, I couldn't do sports at all. It was very much all right, you have 2 bars on your back, like no more basketball,
Like
no
that's
more
it. Yeah.
contact sports, no more, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So
that's
funny. I didn't know that.
Was it a time limit on yours? Like when you say that, or were they like permanently?
No, it's like,
never.
You can't, because your spine's fused. So if you get hit,
it's like
it could come unfused.
Oh, geez, yeah.
And you would need to go have surgery again. So
okay.
I had to they were so hardcore. They basically were telling me I couldn't even ride certain roller coasters because of like the jarring.
That makes sense.
So it just immediately changed to, and that's probably my whole life. It's been very much like mental dexterity over like working. I mean, we've joked about that. You're like, I'll put stuff up, and I'm like, dude, no,
like you're like,
not my jam.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that was, as soon as I was like bedridden, had to learn to walk again, all this stuff. I just immediately relied on mental stuff, learning books, studying, like that type of stuff.
Totally. So, yeah. Dang. Yeah, that is. Yeah, that's funny.
All right.
Basketball.
Let's go. Dude, there's so much to talk about. Let's talk about young adult years. How would you describe your senior year in high school? Like, let's go back to Isaac
in high school.
Tell everybody how that was.
What a good time. Yeah, man, go back. So again, I homeschooled. So senior year, I graduated when I was 17, a little early. I actually got tennis scholarships, full ride tennis scholarships, and ended up not pursuing any of them because I was like 17, and I think I had a hindrance on myself for I didn't know how smart I was, and so like going out into a public classroom, and it was like, I can't even like imagine that. Like, and my personality is, I don't like. I can get in situations that I've been into, but when I get into like awkward situations, I can that are new to me. When I was younger, it was like really hard for me to like pursue that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Today, I don't think I've been in a situation where I can't, I can't just like rant start. But 18, I was headed down, kind of just grasping at anything, trying to fit in a lot. I was drinking a lot. I was partying pretty hard. And let me see here. Yeah, trying to get life traction. Just when I turned 18, I was living in St. George still, and I lived with my sister and 2 sisters actually. And that's when right in that transition is when I moved to Arizona. I woke up after living there. We ended up living there a year, and then I moved out. And 2 weeks later, I was in that period of time. 2 weeks after we moved out, I was living at my parents' garage on their couch, and I just woke up one day in a cold sweat at like 3 a.m. and it was like, get out of town. And it was just, and I believe that it was like, the Holy Ghost and Jesus coming in and being like, get out of town. Anyways, I woke up, drove down, stopped at the freeway and looked right to Salt Lake or left. My sister lived in Arizona, and it was like 3:30 a.m.
Wow.
Jumped in the car and drove, called my sister in Kingman, and then was like, hey, can I move in? And
wow.
Yeah.
No way.
Been here like 13 and a half years, dude. It's kind of crazy, but yeah, it's super addictive personality that I have. It was really hard to not immediately just get addicted to, I mean, anything I tried. Ibuprofen alone. No, I'm just kidding. But
dude, that's wild.
Jeez.
But
yeah, what about you?
I'm curious because, like on the topic of dads, right, and parents and stuff, like during that stage of your life,
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you were, what was your relationship with your parents? Like how was that?
Yeah, good call. So my parents, I knew that, I don't know, in the back of my head, I always was like, okay, if I am ever like struggling, I know I can go to them for help. But I didn't in that moment. It's kind of so tough to say because it's kind of actually hard, to say.
Yeah.
But I think in my head, I knew that they were there to help me, and like they would always be there for me. But emotionally, I didn't know how to ask for help,
Yeah.
like emotionally, and pull at that, because it was like, I don't know. Growing up, it was tough because it was like nobody talked about their sins, nobody talked about their mistakes or anything, and it was really kind of hard because it was like, oh, mom and dad are perfect and I'm not, so I better not share all of my mistakes. And and when you get older, and it wasn't totally that, it was just there's and to a degree there was 11 kids, so it was like, how do you give attention to all of them, and I think they did an amazing job to create 11 amazing people. And so but you look at it, and I think that's what it was like a relationship of, I knew I could go to them for like a money scenario, but emotionally, like I had 6 older sisters that I could go to, and I think that's where I kind of was like, it was easier to go to them because they could relate and they would tell me that they would relate, versus going to mom and dad and it was like, well, you can do better. And it was like, yeah, have you ever been here? Like, you don't relate with me, I just remember yelling at my mom when I was like 14 or something. I was like, you don't even know. And now I'm like older and it's like, yeah, you did know,
Yeah, that's what I mean, having kids, and thinking about how did I treat my parents when I was 18 or 14, 15. I remember vividly, I've offended my mom a ton. I was so rude as a 14-year-old boy. I remember my aunt, she made me go buy her flowers to go take my mom because I was so mean at one point. But I think that now, having kids and being a dad, your perspective totally changes, because imagine your kids in that scenario and you're like, okay, I mean, yeah, your parents are always trying the best that they can, but how do you make it so that your kids are willing to share stuff?
Totally.
Like the comment, hey, like, my parents seem like they were perfect. As a parent, do you have like, how do you become relatable? How do you have those conversations so that your kids are willing to open up about it? Hopefully,
totally.
That's the goal. I don't know.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, no, I have this, I feel like I have this conversation because I it's one where I'm like, I want to figure out so bad because it's not something you want to walk in the room with your kids and be like, hey, all right, this is where I screwed up. All right, you guys ready to get all the info? And it's like, no, like you're not going to walk in there and be like, hey, I screwed up, so here you go. Here's the game plan of you being able to screw up. But in those situations, it's like, man, I don't know, because I look back and I think I handle it. Did my parents handle it good? Like, I knew I could always go back to them. So that was kind of it. But it was like, for certain things, I think it was like, I could go back, and I had so many sisters that I had watched like make mistakes. Like, I was just their little brother getting to watch. And so it was like, I know I could go to her because this mistake, and so that was my release, was being able to go to my sisters and be like, hey, I watched you do this, so I know you can help me through it, or something like that, where my parents couldn't. So but being a dad.
I don't really know how to solve that, but at least know that, hey, like, you create an atmosphere where whatever they say, that they'll receive love and acceptance, I guess, and that's kind of the only solution. At least there's no judgment.
I think don't be scared. Don't be scared to release it at the right time. Like, you'll know when it's the right time. And in my feelings of like, hey, you're old enough to understand like this and this, and it's like, hey, I've made those mistakes too. Like, I have screwed up, And it's like, you don't have to go into like, hey, this is how I screwed up. It was
exactly
8:30 at night, and it was, you know, don't go into that. But yeah, just the basics, like keep it fluff, but be like, hey, I screwed up here.
Makes it relatable.
And it's like, oh, relate it, you know, and that's what you do. Yeah. Create kind of that best friend, but it's tough to be a dad and best friend and mom or, you know, whatever. So, man, oh man.
Yeah. We could probably talk about that for an hour, but
yeah, we're good.
Okay, so we've got about 10-15 minutes left, and I'm, you know, the purpose of this whole, I guess, show was really just to let people get to know who we are and kind of our opinions on certain things. So there's a couple different topics, you know, that we want to share in general, I think, as themes, or just, you know, when we have a guest and we do interviews.
Yeah.
And I think we're talking about wealth and health and family and faith. So in those 4 realms, and we could just do like a quick back and forth, but curious on what are your views on money and providing? Like, how much money is enough? You know, how do you think about providing? What do you do to provide?
Yeah.
I'm curious your opinions on money and wealth.
Yeah. Money and wealth, man, oh man. Yeah, it is. Yeah. I was talking to a buddy last night about it, and that was kind of a hard one. Like, what is it to me? And it used to be an idol to me, like straight up. And like, I think 2 years ago, I kind of had you know, we've been friends for a while. And so you got to watch me through, and you've been kind of a scapegoat for me. And so, but yeah, it used to be a huge, huge idol for me. And then I was like, man, how are these, you know, and I was making good money. And so it was like, wow, like, how do you look back and it's like the people that are making half of what I was making, and I'm looking at them and I'm like, man, they're happy. They're consistently with their kids. They're doing this. And I was like losing myself in work, and it was like just drowning out. And it was like, I don't even know my kids that well and things like that. So my perspective in the last 2 years has changed a ton, because it was like, how much is enough? Never going to get enough, you know? But I also, you know, Jordan, I think it's Jordan Peterson. I want to say his name because it's a good guy. I got a quote, but it's like, or somebody, right? Like, but it was like nobody on their deathbed said they spent too much time with their kids. Yeah. And so, and that was one that it like hit me, and I was like, okay, at what point is having food on the table enough? Right. And so to me, being able to just make sure that bills are paid and that you're able to get to the next month and you have something lined up, like that to me is like enough. And then push it. Like right now, my mindset's changed so much where I'm like, okay, how can I get my kids involved in my day to day so that I can have that? And that's when it'll be to me. But it's such a hard one that I've been thinking about it all since last night, and I'm like, oh, how can I answer that? But yeah, what about you?
That's a good answer, man. And I've seen that change in you, honestly, over the last 2 years. Like, you drastically shifted. Really cool.
Yeah,
it's just to be like, hey, man, like, your priority, see where your time's going, you know, like where, you know, our focus goes. Like, that's obviously what's most important to us. So I would say for me, in that front, I've made a ton of money, lost a ton of money, made a ton of money, lost a ton of money. And now it honestly feels kind of like a game. Yeah. Like the money is it's just a big Monopoly game. And that's how I have to think of it. Otherwise I'll get super depressed. So it's just like, you know, I'll provide for my family. And I think that really is the essence of what is enough. I have to fulfill my role as a provider. Yeah. Make sure there's food on the table, make sure the family's comfortable, make sure they're happy, and then everything else. And you talk to your wife or my wife, you know, there's no number. It's not like, and most of the time she's just like, are you happy? I can tell if you're happy or not. And if you're not happy, then stop what you're doing and go do something else. Yeah. There's no like, I need you to make this much money or whatever. It's very much it's a happiness thing. Yeah. And happiness isn't tied to money, right? So it's like, okay, you know, as long as there's enough to provide, and then it's just a fun game and see how much you can make. And that's kind of how I look at it right now.
Totally. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. I think too, going from so engulfed in it to clicked out like addictive personality. It's really still hard, still to this day. Like you ask my wife and it's like, are you checked in all 24/7? I was like, no, not really. Like I get home and I still am somewhat checked out, but I look back and I'm like, I used to not know my kids' favorite colors. Like I used to not know these little just basic things. And it was, you know, for me, that's coming home and be like, Dad's home. Like that's a huge impactful thing to me. And it was like, yeah, just what I wanted. And like, you know, so, but
good, man. I love it.
It's, yeah, man, oh man.
It's a good one. So we'll
it's a good one.
for sure jump in and talk about that a ton.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of interviews. I'm curious. Everybody's just, opinions on that. So next one is health. So what's your opinions, routines, habits, goals?
Oh man,
when it comes to health, you know, where does that fall in priorities and things?
Yeah, so priorities, that is like not a priority right now. Like I'm like, whoa, yeah, oh, that's a thought. I got to think about that crap, you know. So it's in my head always. Like I'm like, oh, I want to be doing better. I want, cheers to the energy drink they're smashing. But yeah, I think I always want to. Like recently I set a goal of like, I want to run. A buddy challenged me, was like, dude, let's go hit rim to rim. And so I'm like, okay, cool. And so now I'm like, okay, well, I need to focus on that. But then my wife asked me today, she's like, so are you ever going to like prep for it? You know? And I'm like, good call out. Just leave me alone. But okay. But yeah, it's, you know, I want it to be a bigger priority in my life, but I don't know, I'm so one-track minded that it's like, okay, I shifted everything and I'm like, how do I get this multitask scenario? And I need to get just basic routines, but I've told my wife, I'm like, I'm going to go on keto again. I'm going to do this again. I need to just walk every single night. And then it's like, I did it for like a week. And then the next week I'm like, man, this couch is just so freaking comfortable, you know? Oh, but what about you on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is, like what's happening around the house, obviously, what's happening around just your environments. So it's important. I think I've probably talked about this way too much on this, but having a huge surgery like that, I'm scared to like be out of shape. There's a fear there because if I get out of shape or not strong, like I'll have a lot of problems.
Yeah.
And so kind of have to do at least some level of it. I'm not like crazy physically fit or anything, but I go to the gym and, you know, whatever. And just probably out of fear more than anything, you know, and then recently my wife and I, we've tried to have those convos around accountability together. We're doing this thing right now where trying to drink, you know, X amount of water, trying to have X amount of protein. And it's been funny because for the first time, I mean, dude, we've been married for 10 years. Yeah. This is like 11, 12 year.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had a text like accountability back and forth about stuff. This is the first time. And it was so funny. She texted, hey, how's your water going? And how's your protein intake? And then like I did the same thing. And then she didn't hit it. And I bugged her about it. And then she bugged me about it. So it's been a good,
that's so
you know,
cool.
back and forth that we've actually never had before.
Yeah.
About specifically these types of goals. So totally. Trying. I know it's important as a dad. Like, I want to be around.
Totally.
I want to see my kids grow up.
Yeah.
Like, so that's probably
walking
where that
down
comes
the aisle.
From, but
That's so cool about for the vulnerability though too, to like have that text thread back and forth, like the call out with your partner. Like I don't know if I could do that, bro. I'm like, dang, that would be sick, but like, no way. That's so cool.
Okay, current family values, like what? Yeah, I guess just around that topic of family, what's most important to you? Maybe what's your? I did put on here like a favorite family tradition.
Yeah,
just like what did you describe your family? Like what's your guys's?
So having the girls and then the boys, man, what's the fun family traditions? I don't know, jammies, you know, before Christmas, Christmas Eve. Yeah. And then I don't know if we have necessarily a whole bunch of like we go up after Thanksgiving and we'll go cut down a tree. That's super fun. But specific routines, I think
Weekly routines.
yeah, I'm trying to think if we got anything. Nothing consistent. Everything's kind of just wing it, you know. It's my style. If my wife had it, it would be very structured. But you throw me in the mix, and it is just spontaneously day to day.
I love it.
Yeah. What about you on that? What's your?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. My kids are very much like me and my wife. Lots of movie nights, lots of just cuddle on the couch and hang out together and that type of stuff, which is absolutely my favorite. So just spending time, you know, go outside, do walks, little things.
Yeah.
We don't really have like a, you know, your typical Christmas, New Year's type stuff, but I think for us, we're not you know, super like, let's go run and get crazy energetic.
Yeah.
Like our kids are pretty
Let's
calm. Like
Let's go hike the mountains.
Yeah, it's like not our vibe at all.
Yeah.
It's very much let's go read a book.
Let's go. Yeah.
And so
I love
that's probably the energy that my family carries on more than anything. Is
Yeah.
very calm. You know, occasionally they'll freak out, Camden.
that. Yeah.
But yeah,
That's fun.
how it is. So,
I love it. Yeah. Yeah. As you say all that, I'm thinking in my head, we have a golf cart that we go, and I think my favorite thing is to go and just play music and drive it around like at night before kids go to bed or anything. Like it's one thing that I'm like, who wants to go on the golf cart? And I think,
awesome.
you know, it's the routine
Yep.
but the kids are burnt out of it. So I'm like, all right, well, I'll just go by myself. But it's like,
awesome.
it's just so
That's
funny.
what they'll remember.
I'm like, yeah,
Literally. You know,
Yeah.
when you think about the thing, it'll be like, I remember when I
They're
freaking
like,
went on the
I
golf cart.
remember-
with my
yeah.
dad. Like,
I remember when I got burnt out on the golf cart. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. Last topic. This is kind of a, you know, good ending point, I guess. But faith. Curious, you know, if you talk about being a dad
Yeah.
and you know you have health, you have wealth, you have family, faith, like where does that fall? How do you teach it? How does that,
Yeah.
like, what is your kind of beliefs around that with you and your family?
Yeah. No, that's really good. So I leave it all up to my wife.
Yep,
No,
exactly.
I'm just,
Cheers. And
yeah, I'm like,
that's all,
yeah,
folks.
get her done. All right, we can shut it down. No, I mean, I got a strong, you know, believing in God and His Son, and I think it's hard how to teach it is, for me, I'm still so deeply learning. Like it was, you know, I met my wife, and then it was like, oh, let's jump back in, and I was like, okay, but I've never. Still to this day, I don't know if I've necessarily engulfed myself, because it's one of those where I'm like, I know it's true in the back of my heart, and it's like, but it's not something that I just deep dive into and like go. And how to teach the kids, I learned through like trial and error and my, you know, so how to teach it, I watch my wife, and she's consistent with it and everything. And so I mean, I can't thank her enough for all of that and seeing what it is. But seeing that I back her up is like one where, you know, and sometimes it might not feel like I'm necessarily backing her up, you know.
Dude, they see you
taking
man.
a nap over there in the corner, but
all the stuff.
And so, but yeah, it's one where it's got to be consistent. That's all I could say on that. Like if it's not, then it's, you know. That would be it. But what about you on?
Yeah, I think like why that's important. I mean, in general, I think it's a topic that should be discussed by dads, just because of like, I mean, the world's crazy, the world's nuts, and there's not a lot of beliefs that are truth based, where it's like a solid foundation that you can go, you know, build your life on, I guess.
Yeah.
And so from the perspective of a dad with kids, I just, you know, having faith in God and faith in Jesus Christ, and actually understanding what that means and understanding doctrine and the definition of truth,
Totally.
and those types of things, I think at least gives a sense of like, okay, there's something that I can rely on
Mhm.
amidst, dude. I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, dude, imagine what our kids are going to go through
Yeah.
the next 10, 20, 30 years.
Kind of freaks me
Like,
out.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
The world and people's beliefs and what the heck is going on and,
Yeah.
and all that stuff. So at least having, hey, this is how you can find out truth. This is how you can, feel something's true or not. This is how
Yeah.
you can go about that process as an individual, and you don't have to rely on somebody else.
Yeah.
I think those are the things that I think are the most important as far as faith and, teaching kids that and understanding that, how can they figure it out?
Yeah.
Because
Totally.
they're going to have to use that skill set and rely on that at some point when you're not around.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the world is. I think it's pretty important.
Yeah.
whatever religion it is, whatever you believe in,
Whatever.
at least having some
ground.
some grounding
Yeah.
of with that regard, some eternal perspective,
Totally.
being able to zoom out and be like, hey, the world's crazy, but
Yeah.
at least if I zoom out, I know that this is true.
Yeah.
And I think you can just function as a better being,
Yeah.
So
Well, totally. And I agree to that. But especially the solid ground. Like, I think too, if the parents are like grounded, the kids can come back to, they can always rely on that grounded and then see that they were like, you can just have a bigger stance when you're in life because you grew up in a house that was solid ground versus where you're super hesitant and you're there and it was kind of shaky ground almost, that your kids kind of have a harder time because it's like, well, I don't even know where it is, and sometimes it's like easier. I don't know. For me, it's like black and white, like make it black and white, mom and dad, so that, the kids can look at, the gray scenarios if they need to, or whatever in that. But man, it's a
good one.
It's a good time. Yeah. I love it.
Well, dude, that's freaking almost an hour.
Wow.
45 minutes podcasting together.
I love it.
On a lot of different topics. So is there anything else that we should cover? Anything other beliefs? Any other thoughts? They had to get to know Isaac.
Yeah, get to know Isaac, get to know Devin. No, I can't think of anything. I think more is going to come out. Super excited, and we'll get some guys on here that are going to deepen the discussion. And I think we could. I mean, you take each one of these topics and just run the whole time on it.
Yep, I think it was a good overview. So that's a
Yeah.
wrap. Episode
That's
2.
a wrap.
In the books. Good dads.
Good times. We out.
Let's go, baby.
Smash the subscribe button.
Subscribe.